move on to Aristotle's source, which is this one here at the bottom of 89 going into page 90. So this is basically going to go over the state of the Athenian democracy, kind of like from Pericles onwards. And it's really good for using quotes about the power of individuals, i.e. demagogues, and some of the problems that were associated with them. You'll notice also that Aristotle really likes certain people and doesn't like others, as is often the case with these sources. So long then as Pericles held the headship of the people, the estates of the state went better. So although Pericles is a demagogue, and most sources don't like demagogue, because it's Pericles, it's fine. Pericles was doing all the right things for the right reasons. But when Pericles was dead, they became much worse. So basically, it's a golden age under Pericles. There was no problems at all, even despite the plague, etc. War. Everyone who came after was terrible. Fine. For the people, as in the people of Athens, now for the first time adopted a head was not in good repute with respectable classes. So they started picking the wrong kind of people to be kind of like the head of the government, even though there is no head of the government because there's lots of archons and lots of strategy, but you know what it's talking about. Whereas in former periods, those always continued to lead the people. For Solon was the first. So it gives you like a bit of a list now of people who've been kind of like the leading men in Athens. So it's quite handy for sort of quotes about who was in charge at various points. You've got Solon, someone, I'll be honest, I don't really know much about. And then we have Cleisthenes, who had no opponent, so shows that he had quite a lot of power, quite handy for a demagogue essay. Isagoras, another person. Miltiades, who also was part of the Persian War. Themistocles, part of the Persian War. Same with Aristides the Just, from the sources we've looked at. And then we've got Ephialtes, he's the guy who removed the power of the Areopagus. And then we've got Simon. Remember, he was fighting in Egypt in the end of the Peloponnesian War. He was a rival of Pericles. Then we have Pericles. Then we have Thucydides, not our Thucydides, different Thucydides. And then after Pericles, that was a bit of a list, we then have Nicias, who dies in Sicily, as we are well aware. Nicias, who held the headship of the people of distinction, i.e. the aristocracy. And his rival, the head of the people, was Cleon. So there's got this rivalry between these two because they have two different groups. And now he's going to go on a bit of a rant about how terrible Cleon is, because none of the sources like Cleon. And when we get on to the next source, I'll explain why. Who is thought to have done the most to corrupt the people with his impetuous outbursts. He was the first person to use bawling, i.e. shouting and abuse on the platform, and to gird up his cloak before making a public speech, and all of the persons speaking in an orderly fashion. And then he's going to carry on with the list. Theramenes is the guy at the end of the Peloponnesian War who helped with the surrender of Athens. Same with Cleophon. And then other people that we don't need to worry about. Blah, 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 blah. Right, here we go. So from Cleon onward, the pinch of the people was handed on to an unbroken line by men most willing to play a bold part and gratify the many with an eye to immediate popularity. Whew. In other words, after Cleon onwards, these men were basically promising the people what they wanted to hear in order to be popular, which is a classic description of any demagogue in history. If you thought the best politician in Athens after those early times were Nicias, Thucydides, and Theramenes, I would suggest Theramenes is not that good. As to Nicias, and everyone agrees are not an honourable gentleman, but also statesman-like and patriotic service of the whole state. But about Theramenes owing to the confused nature of constitutions that took place in his time, i.e. they surrendered and an oligarchy was in place. But, other than that, he's fine. Sorry, this source annoys me slightly. It's a matter of dispute. Yeah, we don't have to worry about the end of the source. Sorry, I was reading it, but in my head, and all you could hear was weird sounds. Right, so we're talking about Cleon more than anybody else at this particular point. So Cleon's background, he's not from a poor background. He's actually from a really middle-class background. He's from a very wealthy family. But importantly, he's from a merchant class. So his dad had been involved in the leather trade. This means he's not an aristocrat as such. He's incredibly wealthy, he's incredibly well known, but he's not a pure aristocrat, someone unlike Pericles and Nicias and others. So within the sources, you do have this kind of class bias going on. So those who were aristocrats are seen as being really good for the democracy. So if we're looking at this source in particular, we're talking about Pericles and Nicias Cleisthenes and so on. These are all aristocrats. So they still had control over the people. They were still demagogues, but because they are rich aristocratic demagogues, that's fine. But someone like Cleon, who is from not an aristocratic background, is not good because he happens to be a different class. So when we're looking at the sources, we have to be aware that Cleon in particular gets a really horrible sort of picture drawn of him. Now, I'm not defending him. Clearly, perhaps if all the sources are saying the same thing, there was an issue with him. But we do need to be aware that the sources, because of the nature of his background, are particularly negative towards him. So the source we're talking about here is Aristophanes' Nights, which, as you saw, starts at the bottom of page 90. So I'm going to talk you through the key characters and the sort of the basic, very basic plot line that's going on. Remember, Aristophanes is a contemporary playwright, and he writes satirical plays, so he's taking the mick out of Athenian democracy and society and doing that in order to sort of show some of the flaws that are within it. We do have to be aware that Aristophanes hates Cleon, partly because of his background, but also partly because Cleon had tried to have Aristophanes prosecuted, and had Cleon lost the case, and Aristophanes as a result writes plays attacking Cleon quite often, and this is one of them. So just be aware of it. He makes some really good demagogue quotes, but we had to put it into context of how much he hates demagogues and Cleon in particular. So there's a few characters we need to be aware of. There are two slaves, Demosthenes and Nicias. Now, Aristophanes is being not clever, but clever with the names. Demos means the people. Demosthenes is also one of the people who followed up Pylos, whose command was taken off, or sort of was, no, not taken off, sorry, who was like over, I can't even speak, that Cleon overshadowed with, happened at Pylos. And Nicias is obviously a play on Nicias, who is Cleon's rival. Both of these are slaves, and they are slaves, and here comes the joke, of the people. Hilarious. Anyway, moving on. There's Paphlagon, who is another slave, and he represents Cleon. There is also a sausage seller, who is also like Cleon, and is going to replace the Cleon in the play. Confused? It's not difficult, this play, it's just a bit weird. And there's also a chorus, who in Athenian plays represent the audience and what they're thinking, or what they're supposed to be thinking at any particular point in the play. So here's the basic plot. So you've got slaves. Demosthenes and Nicias are unhappy with this third slave, Paphlagon, because he's lazy and taking the credit for their work, i.e. attacking Cleon. So they decide to replace him with someone similar, who but is controllable. So they're going to replace this slave with a sausage seller. But also the sausage seller is going to like take over Athens and get rid of like Cleon. Essentially, Cleon is bad. We're going to get rid of Cleon by replacing him with another type of Cleon, but one we can control better. And that is the gist of the particular play. So we're coming in at the point where Demosthenes and Nicias have formed this plot to get rid of the slave they hate. Okie dokies. So, blessed sausage seller, come here, beloved one, arisen a saviour to the city and us. And the sausage seller's a bit thick, by the way, all the way through the play. So what is it, why are you calling me? Come here so you may learn how fortunate you are and how greatly blessed. Okay, sausage seller comes up. You carry on, take his table off him, explain the meaning of the god's oracle. I'll go and keep an eye on Paphlagon. So they're keeping an eye out for sort of like this Cleon character. Come now first, so we put your things down on the ground and make obeisance to the gods, to the earth and the gods. So then there's the sausage seller. So it takes a while to get going this bit. Blessed man of wealth, today nobody, tomorrow Colossus, Grand Marshal of Athens the Blessed. My good man, why won't you let me wash my tripe and sell my sausages instead of making fun of me? What do you mean, tripe, you stupid fool? Look over here. Do you see the serried ranks of this assembled host? So he points to the audience, who's meant to represent the assembly. Yes. Of all these, he shall be paramount chief two of the market, the harbours and the Sphinx. So this is where the assembly met. Obviously, the harbours and the marketplace, the agora. So he's basically pointing out that if he acts like they're going to tell him to do, he's going to be able to control everything. So remember, the sausage seller is basically representing Demagogues, stroke Cleon. So this shows that the Demagogues had control over everything. And he goes on with this point. You'll trample on the council, trample on council and trim back the generals. I'm going to type that in because that's really annoying. The general. Chain prison and very rudely, you'll do some naughty stuff where the council sits. Excuse me if I don't read that out loud. So basically, he's going to control the council and do whatever he wants to do, and he can control the generals. And this is the power of demagogues at this particular point in Athens. Me? Yes, you. You haven't seen it all yet. Climb higher on this table and look down at all the islands around you. I see them. What else? Do you see the trading ports and merchant ships? Yes. How can you then say you're not greatly blessed? Now cast your right eye to Caria and the other to Carthage. I shall be blessed if I twist my neck. It's not that. It's all that expenses to be bought and sold at your will. So again, he's going to have like a massive money and power. For his oracle here says you're to become a great man. And how, tell me, I a soldier seller, how to become a man? Right. We slowly getting to the point. It's exactly for that reason, don't you see, that you'd become great, because you're low and from the agora and bold as brass. So he's making a bit of a dig at Cleon's background, because he's, from a merchant class. I don't consider myself worthy to hold great power. You could also, take a pause there, use this for participation of the lower classes, because it's sort of pointing out that anybody could become powerful in the assembly, anybody could be a politician, so on and so forth. So it's quite a good, it's not meant in a positive way, but you could use it as a positive participation quote. Unpausing play. Heavens, whatever's the matter, that you should say you're not worthy. It seems to me you have something good on your conscience. You don't come of good upright stock, i.e. you don't come from a good background. So again, participation. Excuse me. Good God, no, nothing of bad stock. Oh, congratulations, what good luck. What an advantage you for political life. So these are constant digs at Cleon's background. But my good man, I've not even had any education except for reading and writing. I'm proper bad at that. That's your only impediment, that you know at all, even proper bad. The leadership of the people is no longer a job for the educated man or one of good abilities. Ouch, Cleon. But for one who's ignorant and foul. Ouch again. Don't slip what the gods offer you in the oracle. What does the oracle say? This is a made-up oracle, by the way. It speaks good by all the gods. It's wrapped even in complex and crafty riddly language. So here comes the prophecy. It makes no sense. But when the crooked talon eagle of leather shall seize in his beak the blood-quaffing blockhead serpent, even then perisheth the garlic brine of the Paphlagons, and to the sellers of tripe the god grants great glory. Sif, they prefer not to vend sausages. Quite. Well, what they've got to do with me, explain it to me. So now he's going to manipulate the oracle to fit the situation. Well, the eagle of leather is Paphlagon here. So Cleon, as one of the strategoi, or leading politicians in Israel, would have been expected to be in the audience. So this is nothing subtle here. Nothing at all. But this, again, is a dig at this kind of leather merchant background. What is crooked talent? I fancy speaks for itself that he seizes things and carries them off with hands crooked like claws, i.e. he is corrupt. What is the point of the serpent? That's blatantly obvious. The serpent's a long thing. The sausage is also a long thing. Okay. Then again, both the sausage and serpent are blood quaffers. So it says the serpent is now to vanquish the eagle leather. Sith, he is not made by soft words. The oracle tickles my pride, but I'm amazed how I'm supposed to be capable of exercising stewardship of the people. Here comes some really good quotes about the power of demagogues and what they do in order to have their power. Easy spy, do the same things you do already. And here is the most important quotes. There we go. So mix all their affairs together and stir them into a hash. Try to win over the people with little touches of elegantly prepared rhetoric as sweeteners. So use speech in order to control them. The other demagogic qualities you possess are repellent voice, low birth, and you're a typical product of Agora. Again, that is a massive dig at Cleon and his background. You have everything needed for public life. The oracles and the voice of Thytho are in agreement. Now crown yourself and pour libation to the god blockheads, and let's see you pay the man out. But he'll be my ally, for the rich are frightened of him, the poor fart in terror. Sorry, that always makes me chuckle. But there are the knights, 1,000 men who hate him and come to aid, all who are honest and decent amongst citizens. Every man of intelligence in the audience, and myself along them, and the gods will lend his assistance. Have no fear, he's not betrayed by his own face. The property makers were too frightened by any of them to be prepared to make portrait mask of him. He'd recognise the same, the audience is intelligent enough. And then the Paphlagon, remember who's supposed to be Cleon, comes out of the house. By the 12 gods, you two won't get away with this long-standing conspiracy of yours against the people. So it's the idea that he's saying that the people will be manipulated for their own ends, which is, again, typical demagogue behaviour. What's this Chaldean cup doing? It can only be that you're inciting the Chalcedonians to revolt. You will perish, you will die, you pair of villains, sorry, not villains, not in the medieval times. So Demosthenes then is going to speak. I don't know why I said that was a bit weird, sorry. Here, why are you running away? Stay put. Nobles such as them, don't betray the cause. Men of the cavalry, come here. Now's the moment. Simon, Paneth, something or other. Drive for the right wing. The nearest rear round, defend yourself. The dust cloud is plenty to see. The close and attacking. Fight him, fight to the fight. Ooh, got there eventually. Hit him, hit the villain. So here is obviously you could say, public opinion of Cleon. The Harry of the cavalry corps, the tax farmer, the bottomless chasm, and Chabdis of robbery, the villain. I'll say it several times, for he's a villain, several times a day. Strike him, chase him, harry him, worry him, abominate him, for so do we, and shout as you attack him. Take care he doesn't escape you, for he knows the routes by which Eucrates used to take his getaway straight into Clover. Venerable jurymen, brethren of the Order of the Three Obols. Right, that is a reference, there we go, to Cleon's reforms. So remember, Pericles had introduced payment for jurors of 2 obols a day, and Cleon put it up to 3. He would argue to improve the participation of the poor in the juries. Others would say to make himself popular. Depends how you look at it. In fact, he was using like the law courts for his own ends, for whom I feed my land and the nations, including someone like Aristophanes, hence why he's bringing it up. Come over being beaten by conspirators. And rightly too, for you eat up the public funds before the lot has fallen to you, so there's an element of Cleon might be corrupt, or we certainly be getting accused of corruption. You pick off the outgoing magistrates like figs, pressing them to see which of them is green or ripe or not yet ripe. So remember, outgoing magistrates had to have an account of their actions in the assembly. So he's suggesting that Cleon, who at this particular point, previous to Pylos, hadn't actually been elected to any position. So he's sort of saying that maybe he's using his position in order to kind of get money. And yes, you seek out any private citizens as silly lamb, rich, not wicked, and frightened of public affairs. If you discover one of them is a simpler fellow minding his own business, you bring him home to the Chersonese, take him round the waist with slanders, hug his leg and twist back his shoulder and plant your foot on him. So he's just being a bit horrible. Do you join in tact too? But gentlemen, I've been beat up on your account because I was about to make a proposal that's fitting to set up a monument to your Acropolis in honour of your courage. So that's the idea that a demagogue is manipulating the people. So he's trying to get out of this particular situation by trying to sort of say, but I'm going to put up a statue to the knights, and isn't it wonderful? However, the knights are not going to fall for this. What a fraud, what a supple rogue. Do you see how he tries to flatter us and humbug us? So again, the idea that demagogues are using speech and policy to make people happy in order to stay in power. Well, if he moves this way, he'll be struck by this with a fist. And if he tries to duck this way, he'll butt against a leg. I'm going to kick him. My city, my people, look at these animals who punch you in the stomach. Oh, you shout, do you, the same way you always try and make yourself master of the city, i.e. you're a demagogue, because he's using rhetoric. With these same shouts for my weapons, I'll put you first to flight. So this is when the Sosostella is now going to be copying kind of like Cleon in terms of the strategy in order to get power. Well, if you're victorious with your shouts, you're the hurrah man, but if he suppresses you in shamelessness, then we'll take the cake. I denounce this man. I say he exports soup containing naval stocks for the Peloponnesian triremes, and I, by Zeus, denounce this man for running to the Priorincium with an empty stomach and then running out with a full one again, i.e. he's going to the council to set the agenda for the assembly and getting what he wants as corruption. Oops. That's right, and taking prohibited goods out with him, bread and meat together, slice of fish, which Pericles never in his life thought to deserve. The two of you will die this minute. It goes into a shouting match in different sections here. So I'll bawl as 3 times as loud as you, i.e. I'm like Cleon. I'll shout you down with my shouts. I'll bawl you down with my balls. I'll smear you, you've become general. I'll flay your back like a dog's. I'll suck you with claptrap. I'll cut off your lines of retreat. Look me in the car without blinking. I too was bred in the agora. If you so much grunt, I'll tear you into pieces. If so much you talk, I'll fling you on the dung heap. I vow you myself a thief, you aren't one. Yes, I am. By the Hermes of the agora, I can steal before witnesses and die on oath. That's plagiarism. I expose you to the Pyrogenes in possession of sacred tribe belonging to the gods, but no tithe has been paid. You notice I haven't highlighted any of it. The insults, to be honest, are not particularly relevant. Villainous and loathsome screaming, your audacity fills the whole earth, the assembly, all taxes, all indictments, all law courts. You mud churner, you have thrown our whole city into chaos and confusion. So this is like, Cleon is really bad and has like destroyed democracy. You who have deafened Athens with your shouting, i.e. he's used rhetoric to gain power. Watching like the tiny fishes from the rocks above for shoals of tribute. I know from what lever this plot has long been stitched up. Yes, if you don't know about stitching leather, don't know about making sausages, you used to cut the hide of a rotten old ox at an angle so it looked thick and cheat the country people who were selling it to them before they worn it on their first feet a day was 2 handbreadths bigger. So i.e. Cleon is making promises he can't keep. Demosthenes did the same thing to me, by heaven, with the result I became a journalist laughing stock to my friends and fellow steedsmen. Before I went to Pergasse, or whatever, I was swimming in my shoes. It does eventually end, I promise. Did you not then start from the right from the start, display shamelessness, the sole guardian deity of politicians? Trusting her, you stripped the most fruitful of the foreigners, you the number one, while the son of Hippodamus streams of tears as he watches. But now another man has appeared much more villainous than you, so that I rejoice. A man who will put a stop to you and will surpass you is clear right away in roguery, audacity, and power of the humbug. He's a better speech person, orator, dear me. That's why he's going to overpower him. Now you who are reading that place whence all men come who are real men, show us now just how worthless a decent upbringing is. Now listen here what sort of sits in this man, he's not going to let you speak. No, I'm a low fellow too. And what that doesn't make him yield, now add that you're low of ancestry as well, you're not going to let him speak, by no. By yes, Zeus. By Poseidon, no. You get the gist of what's going on here, it's an argument. By God, I'm ready to burst, won't let you. So I'm going to skim that bit, it's not particularly interesting. Because I'm as capable as you speaking, stirring things up, i.e. rhetoric. There's loads of rhetoric quotes in this play. Speaking he does, and do a fine job in case, if a case fell onto you, to take down but draw and tide, you had it excellently. Do you know what I think's come over you? What comes first on most people? I suppose you give a good speech in a puffing little case against an immigrant after muttering all night, repeating it to yourself in the streets, drinking water, who cares? What is it you think? You've made the city such you now alone can master with your tongue and reduce it to silence, i.e. the power of rhetoric yet again. Do you compare any man alive to me? There's a really loud truck outside my window, sorry. I'll swallow down hot slices of tunny and then drink a jug full of neat wine to follow, and straight I'll screw the generals at Pylos. So there is a little bit of a dig at Cleon. So remember, at Pylos, Nicias had the command. This is during the Peloponnesian War. Demosthenes was already out there. It was all taking a bit long and they were really struggling. And then Cleon stands up in the assembly and basically says, I could do this in I think it's like 20 or 30 days if you give me the command. It's so obvious these people are idiots. And Nicias sort of unexpectedly turns around and goes, yeah, sure, go for it, and resigns. And then Cleon's forced to go out and become general. In Cleon's defense, he is successful and wins the battle. However, this is what this little dig about Pylos is, that he's kind of gaining someone else's glory when it wasn't really deserved, which is a little unfair. I'll go down and retripe and hog stripe and drink off the gravy before my hands. I'll frost the politicians and ruffle Nicias. Fair enough. I was pleased with the rest of you said, but one thing doesn't appeal to me. You mean to lap up the political gravy all by yourself. You won't devour the mines in space and fall in a hurricane. And then we've got the idea that Cleon can go again, goes to the council and gets it to do whatever he wants. And then it's some little slightly rude insults around in here too. So it's quite a string of them. So I'll stuff your ass like a sausage skin. I'll drag you out the doors by the buttocks, head downwards. I'll clap you in the stocks or indict you for cowardice. Your hide will be stretched on the tanning bench. So he's going to skin him, basically. It's really gross. I'll flay you into a thief's holdall. So he's going to make him into a purse when he's got his skin. You'll be spread out and pegged on the ground. It's very painful. I'll make mincemeat of you. My favourite insult of all time, which I think needs to make a comeback, is this one. I'll pluck out your eyelashes, which is horrible, but it's just really weird. It makes me chuckle. Sorry. Start using it when someone's annoying you. I'll pluck out your eyelashes. I think it's brilliant. Anyway, I'll cut out your crop. And then it carries on for a bit. So then speeches more shameless than the shameless speeches that are uttered in the city. Okay, rhetoric's being used by Cleon to control everything. Attacking, making, twist and twirl. Blah, blah, blah. And then I'm just skimming it round. So again, he's now managed to pass for a man by reaping another man's harvest. That's another dig about Pylos, saying it's not really deserved, but it was deserved because, he did actually do it. I have no fear for you while the council chamber lives. and while Demos continues to sit booby-faced on the Sphinx. So remember that that's obviously the ball, the council. Demos is the people, that's the Greek term for it. And he's basically suggesting, the Sphinx is where the assembly sits. So booby-faced is like they're sitting there with like mouths wide open. So this point he's making at the end is he has nothing to fear as long as he's able to use speech to manipulate the people, and they just sit there with like mouths gaping open, just kind of accepting everything he says. So there's lots of really random attacks in here, but there's some really good quotes about rhetoric and oratory and the power of demagogues and how you become a demagogue and how you stay a demagogue and how Cleon's really bad for everybody and it's absolutely awful. And that is it for the sources for this particular week. Now, I will be setting some summer work, and there will be a separate source video for those sources, which I will make, I will publish after the deadline next week. Somewhere in there was a very clear instruction. Also, a heads up, I've spoken to a couple of students about this already. I'm going to be making videos for all of the source topics. So I'm going to go back through and do the Republic and do the Persian War and Peloponnesian War, and then I'm going to also do all the emperors and also the rest of this unit. So when we're back in September, however we're back in September, all of the sources will be flipped to be done at home using the source videos, which is going to free up a lot of time in lesson to do other things. Especially as the people I've spoken to said they found these source videos really, really helpful. If there's anything else you can think of that would be helpful alongside those, please do say. However, that's just a sort of a heads up about how things are going to be progressing in the next few weeks.